CQ.
Hello and welcome back to CQ, the AWS Certification Quiz Show, where I'm here this week with Chris and we're going to take a look at our Solution Architect Associate Level exam. Chris, welcome to CQ.
It's great to be here.
Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about what you do here at AWS?
I will. I'm a solution architect with AWS. I've been here just over 3 years now.
We were just working this out.
Yeah.
I was like, I've been here longer than you.
No.
Nope.
I think we still had my learner plates on when you joined, I think, MJ. And I've been here 3 and a bit years now, part of the solution architecture team. At the moment, I'm currently working with a lot of enterprise customers. I work with roughly about 12 to 15 customers, all various stages of adoption of cloud, also across a whole bunch of industries. So I work with financial customers, industrial customers, customers that build really large buildings and we put IoT devices in them. We work with customers that are building out payment gateways. So a lot of interesting stuff I get to work on every day. I work with some customers who have never touched cloud before, and then I work with some customers that are building extremely large container, complex infrastructures. So
who knows what you're going to get on a daily basis.
Every day is a new adventure here.
I love it. Chris, we were just talking a little bit about your certification journey, which is actually a bit of an interesting one. Do you mind sharing a bit about that with our viewers?
So I was one of those people that had worked with AWS for a long time. I started using AWS in probably about 2008, and I hadn't got a single certification until I joined AWS. And then everyone was like, Chris, how many certs have you got? And I had the great answer of none. And a few people said, welcome to the team, but
might want to get that
sorted out. So then I went on and did my 3 associate level exams. And at the time, there was only 5 exams. So the goal was to get the 5.
Changed a lot in 3 years.
It's changed a lot. So I've currently got 7 certs. So the last one,
just drop that in.
Yeah, just drop 7 in. The last one I got was the networking one, which was the network specialty. That was a lot of fun doing that. Learned a lot doing that exam actually, which was part of the reason why I did that. The next one I'm looking at doing is the security one. So
I mean, you could watch some of our previous security episodes.
That's a great idea. I've watched a few of the episodes actually.
Have you? Yeah. Interesting. Well, we'll see how you go. I'm pretty sure I've got some network questions coming up for you
that's what
with
I need.
Your previous network certification. Awesome. So real quickly, Chris, before we jump into the questions, tell us a bit about where we are today.
Oh, yes. So we're in Chicago, but what we don't see there is how badly the Chicago team played that day.
I remember.
That's right. So, being a kid in the 90s, I was a huge fan of the Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman as well. And, we were lucky enough to go on a trip over there with some friends and managed to get into a Bulls game. And a few of us were there to be able to watch them play. Not the team they were in the 90s or the early 2000s, but it was a great event, and it was a good reminder of the current situation that travel's a little bit harder now, and it just, I don't know, and I like the aspect as well. It looks like we're actually at the game commentating on the game. Yeah,
so. It reminds me how little of the sport we actually watched, and I've never been anywhere where it was actually more focused on everything but the sport.
Yeah,
it was really cool.
Yeah. The t-shirt gun was a particular highlight for me.
Did you get a t-shirt?
I didn't.
Because I did not get a t-shirt.
No one got one.
Okay. Good. I didn't miss out. All right, are you ready to have a bit of a go at CQ?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Should we bring up the question one?
Yep.
Let's
always
do it.
A good question.
So just a reminder for everyone watching with us, please feel free to type in the number of the answer you think it is so you can play along with us. And today we are looking at our associate level solution architect. So for Mr. 7 certifications over here, this should be a walk in the park.
Well, it's been a while. It's been
oh, now you want it back out.
It was 2.5 years ago I got these on, but okay.
Producer John has set us up with databases to start with, so let's see how you fare.
Yeah, I love databases.
That's your thing?
It is. I was a DBA for a while. Okay.
There you go. Yeah. Let's do it. Chris, you have 100 gigs of data across thousands of historical data files stored in CSV files in Amazon S3. The data is required for audit purposes, but only a few queries are performed each month. What would be the most cost-effective way to store and query this data?
So S3, my favourite service. It's one of the.
We were playing the guess the icon at
just
the start of CQ.
I got it.
And you've already got EC2 and S3.
simple
Just
man,
saying.
simple taste. S3 it's one of the longest services that we've had, one of the first to launch. It was actually the first service I used with AWS back in 2008 to store files. So anything to do with S3, I'm in. And I think the features that it keeps adding are always amazing. So when I look through this list here, I think the answer will pop out as pretty quickly. But let's have a look. So we've got HDFS and EMR, great service. It's something to set it up. We can definitely do this with that. Use Athena. So Athena's obviously a great service when you're just wanting to query data off S3. So that's a really good potential answer there. Create a query using Amazon Select. It's all right with one file, but if you're looking at hundreds of files, I don't know if it's the right one. Copy the data to Elasticsearch. Similar to EMR, we have to move the data from S3 into another service. So there's a whole bunch of time that could take some process. Very manual. So I'm liking Athena, as I always do, but for this answer, I like it even more. So maybe.
So you zoned in on a few things there. The fact that it was thousands of files, and you liked the word query. Would that be fair to say how you?
And cost effective as well. Yes.
So locking in Athena. Quick check on our poll. Most people have gone with Select.
Well. It's interesting. I have used Select a lot in the past, but really on one file at a time.
One file at a time. That's the key.
Yeah, and if you want to look across a whole bunch of files, I tend to think Athena might do the job really well.
We just had a great call out on the chat as well that our exam questions don't normally have a title. You're absolutely right. So we just do it in CQ so that our guests, can suddenly panic or not panic as to what the question coming up is about. So no, you're absolutely right. In the actual exam, you would certainly not get a title for your question, the way we have databases here. You should be able to validate that, Mr. 7 certifications.
There's definitely no title. It's always question 1 up to 67 or something, I think.
Depending on which exam.
It totally does.
Whether it's associate or professional level. And speciality different again. And CPE different again. Locking in Athena. Is that where we got to?
That's where I'm at. It doesn't look like the audience is there.
They're not following you. You're going to have to give more of an explanation on question number 2. Let's see if you've at least got number 1 correct.
Right, let's see.
Of course. You said databases was your thing. I would be very worried.
I love Athena and I love S3, so if I got that wrong, I'd be in trouble for my research.
Reckon you are ready for question number 2.
Please.
Let's check the title for this one. Number 2, we're looking at workflows.
Workflows, okay.
All right, Chris, you have a script on an Amazon EC2 instance that is used to process files stored on Amazon S3. There you go, given to you again.
Yes.
The script will download the file, unzip it, process the contents of the file into a database. How can this script be triggered when a new file is uploaded to S3?
So look, S3 again, proving itself to be the main cog in the wheel here. So what are we doing? We've got a file that we want to process when it lands in S3. It's got to get processed on EC2. I think that's it could be a little bit of a hint.
Yes.
And then we've got to put the contents into a database. Okay, so let's have a look here. Trigger a Lambda function that calls AWS Systems Manager run commands. So we're using some SSM, love SSM. So that's a possibility. Configure an S3 event. So we're using an S3 event to publish to an SNS topic and have the script continuously poll the messaging topic. I'm not 100% sure that SNS works like that. What do you think?
I think you might have found a distractor.
A distractor.
Producer John being a bit cheeky here. I think we should be talking about SQS there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Okay. Unless it's
nice catch.
Do you reckon it's a typo? Is there a typo? Okay. Send file information and activate the script via user's instance data. Okay, so user data really only gets run when the instance is launching. So if we want to launch an instance every time that a file is put in S3, could be done, but I think it would be a bit of overkill for what we're trying to do. So let's have a look at the 4th one here. Attach API gateway to the instance, then send a message to the REST endpoint. So I'm not exactly sure how we attach the API gateway to the instance. So we'd have to register the instance with API gateway, then send a message to the REST endpoint. That feels like a lot of...
Isn't mentioned in the question.
No. And it's a lot of moving parts as well, right? So all of a sudden we've got to deploy API gateway and a whole bunch of things. So when I come back to this, there's sort of like really, Systems Manager is probably one of those services that we're not using enough, as when I go into my customers at least. Very, very handy service where you can actually run things. So we've got a lot of scripts with Lambda and things that can run outside of the host. So can run against EC2 snapshots, all those kind of things. We've got a lot of automation in that space. Inside the host, which is generally the customer's responsibility, we really want to be able to run things on EC2. Systems Manager is a great way to do that.
Awesome.
So I would be looking at that to be triggered off the back of my Lambda function.
We have 70% agreements from the poll, so you're still not quite there with your 100%. Bit better on this one though.
Let's see.
So we're locking in number one with 70% of your audience. Let's make sure, of course, Systems Manager.
70% is...
I don't think we've had a Systems Manager question since Series 1.
Oh, we need to change that. We need to get some more titles with Systems Manager in there and get some tongue twisters going, because there's quite a few parts of Systems Manager. So
it'd be good to go through a bit more of that, I think. Noted. Next SA episode we do.
Systems Manager Special.
Manager, here we come.
Awesome. Special series.
Now, I believe this is the exam that you don't have. Your certification that you don't have.
No.
It's be interesting.
Audience, I need your help.
All right, Chris. While investigating an application performance issue, you have detected high volumes of requests coming through from 50 plus IP addresses. I feel like that stands out in this question. They appear to be automated attempts to find vulnerabilities in your application. Chris, how can you block the requests coming from these 50 plus IP addresses?
Right. This is not uncommon, right? Like people that are running public-facing websites out there tend to see this a lot, where people have, wanting to look for vulnerabilities in their websites. There's a lot of tools out there that can help with that. Let's have a look at some of these answers here and see which one works out the best. Configure the route tables to direct traffic from these IP addresses to unused private IPs. That could work, but like we've got 50 IP addresses there, and it doesn't.
Route table has a limit, right?
It does. We've got so limits are an interesting point out here. So as soon as you start seeing numbers in exam questions, I start thinking limits, but limits change all the time. So I don't know how appropriate it would be to include those in exam questions.
Chris is absolutely right, viewers. We actually don't include limits in any of our answers. Okay. So I'm sure you can go through what the limits are in some of these, but you are not quite required to know those for the exam. So awesome point out.
So I'm going to skip route tables. We'll cross that off. Use WAF on load balancer or CloudFront. Yes, love WAF. That could be a definite possibility there. We'll come
90%.
Back to... Oh, okay. We might not even need to bother going through the other two. The audience has spoken.
Well, you said you needed help. It sounds like they're trying to help you.
Thank you very much. So I guess we'll just quickly touch on the other two. So security groups.
Interesting.
So what's one of the things that got pointed out to me just before the show that I'd kind of forgotten? When I was talking about a new feature that came out, which is called prefix lists, which allows you to define a list of IPs that are known to your organization, and you can actually reuse that prefix list across a whole bunch of your security groups. Really, really great feature. So the other thing that comes with security groups is you can only allow IPs.
That's right.
You can't block them. So if we wanted to block 50 IPs, we'd have to include the whole internet except those 50 IPs. Yeah. So probably not a great use of our security.
Bit of a mission.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are limits on security groups as well. So network ACLs, I think, would suffer from pretty much a similar problem to security groups.
That's our lowest, right? 20 rules off the top of my head.
Oh, look at you. Yep, 20. Have you done the security exam?
No. But I've listened to Pierre and all of our other security experts we've had on, Chris.
Oh, fantastic.
Maybe you should watch those episodes.
I will now. But prior to WAF, so before AWS had WAF, before I joined Amazon, I actually used network ACLs for this purpose and did hit a lot of limits and things like that around trying to block large amounts of IPs. So
it looks like we've had one or two people go for knuckles as well. So maybe that is of previous experience. It is something
you can do, but there are limits there. And so when I think about 50 plus, definitely WAF would be the tool I'd reach for there. There's IP lists, there's that you can have in there that you can share. Really, really quick and easy way to do that.
Locking in number 2 with a little bit of help from the audience, and apparently not our previous episodes. Of course, it is number 2. I wouldn't quite say you're ready for that exam yet, though.
Well, maybe the viewers could let us know if they think I'm ready yet or not. We'll see how we go.
I wonder if we've got another security question. Maybe that'll give us our answer.
That's it.
All right, let's do it. Let's bring up question number 4. Damn, not security, but network. And you've just done this exam.
I have just
done
done
this exam. So I did tell you we were having some of this.
This is good.
About to pop up. So let's do this one. All right, Chris, you have an application that runs in multiple AWS regions. You want incoming traffic to be connected to the closest possible AWS location. And from there, it should then travel across the AWS global network via the optimum network path to your application. How would you, Mr. Architect, architect this network design?
Oh, great.
Love this.
Love it. Exactly, do love this one. This is an area that I've been working on with a customer recently, and they've used a couple of these technologies. So we had to evaluate a few of these different options. So I'm excited to see which one will fit best for this use case. So let's just pick up a couple of things in the questions that I'm seeing there is multiple regions. So we need a global service and the closest possible region. And we want and from there it should travel across our global network. So AWS does have a very large global network.
So I might stop you there, seeing as I can see what you're doing there. Do you mind if I bring up a quick tip of the week, Chris?
Oh, tip of the week.
Ready? Give us your certification tip of the week. I saw what you were doing with the question, so I thought, perfect time.
Perfect time. Okay, so one of the things that you'll notice in the specialty exams and the professional exams, they're actually quite long questions, and they're actually half a page.
And you don't get that much time per question once you work it out.
You don't have much time. Time is against you, and some questions you do need to really read in depth. So you want to spend longer time on those questions. So what I've normally done in those type of questions is actually skim read the question very quickly, try and pick up a couple of the key technologies. Then I just go read the answers. Right?
See what aligns.
See what aligns, and then I go back and read the question in depth. And I found that actually, some of the questions, some of the answers you can actually cross off straight away because they either aren't real or they don't work the right way. So yeah, that's my quick tip to get in there and get through your pro or specialty certs quickly.
Thank you for that. We haven't had a tip in the week in a while, so that's perfect. All right, let's look at some of these answers, shall we?
Yeah. So Route 53 latency-based routing, something I've actually used in the past, but when I look at this answer, I'm not 100% convinced that that's the one that we want because latency-based routing,
via internet.
Yeah, we'll still go through the internet, exactly. S3 transfer acceleration, so that's for S3. We're not looking at an S3 thing here. AWS Global, unfortunately we're not looking at S3.
And there it is.
Global Accelerator, so that's a fairly new service from AWS. And I've used that heavily with customers and they love it. Just because of the ease it is to actually solve some of these kind of latency problems. And then we've got Transit Gateway. So when I look at Transit Gateway, that's more for your peering networking, not so much your internet-facing traffic. So I'm going to put what little money I do have on number 3 for Global Accelerator.
Yet again, you haven't quite hit 100%. You're at the 90% again on this one. Chris, you need to be have more conviction in the answers.
Guys, it's number 2.
It's number 3 actually, but let's just...
I wanted to see if it moved.
We've had Global Accelerator a couple of times over the past few weeks, so we'll, be creeping into the exams the more updates that we get. So let's just double check. Of course, it is Global Accelerator.
Quite a lot of features have been added to that recently as well. So yeah.
Awesome. Let's jump on to question number 5. Streaming data.
Love it.
Yeah. Awesome. Chris, a factory has hundreds of temperature sensors streaming data every minute. How would you architect a solution that triggers an alert when a sensor reading exceeds a given temperature threshold?
Very interesting. So
I like this one.
I've just come off an IoT project with one of my customers. They actually have deployed telemetrics devices on a whole bunch of trucks. And telemetrics device basically allows you to pick up the data from the truck's engine, from their brakes, lets you assess things like how the driver is driving, are they braking too much, are they affecting the maintenance schedule of the truck by their driving, all that kind of stuff. Actually lets the customer know where their truck is at. So, if you're getting a pizza delivery or even Uber uses that kind of technology to let you know where food is at, trucking companies are using the same technology to let people know where their deliveries are. So
Awesome.
they use IoT for that.
You might have just given away the answer with that little story.
Well, let's see where the use case fits, because they actually want to trigger an alert on the back of that.
That's right.
So let's have a look at some of the solutions we've got mentioned in our list here. So send the data to CloudWatch, create an alarm for each sensor. So if we're looking at hundreds of trucks and hundreds of CloudWatch metrics,
you don't really want to set an alarm for
every
hundreds
truck.
of times.
Yeah. So your onboarding experience could be pretty long. So we might put that to the side.
Okay.
Send the data to Kinesis Firehose to go to Elasticsearch and create a threshold alert for each sensor. That's a possibility. So quite often we'll land data like that in Elasticsearch, and Elasticsearch has alarms and stuff built into it now. So that could definitely be a possibility.
Okay.
Again, you're kind of looking at hundreds of sensors. So
I think that's the key here.
that could be the key. Send the data to the Amazon IoT. Create a rule to send a message to Amazon SNS. So SNS is a simple notification service, so you can send an email or SMS or those kind of things. So that's a good possibility. I think I've kind of got my thoughts made known.
But let's check number 4.
Let's check number 4, because I don't want to miss anyone. And
I thought you'd had 100%, but you might have just convinced someone to go otherwise. Anyway, number 4,
okay.
number 4.
Not prescriptive enough. Send the data to Amazon SQS. Trigger a Lambda function to monitor the temperatures. As much as I love the combination of SQS and Lambda together, it probably is, again, a tough experience.
Yeah, not the best solution.
Not the best solution possible, but I wouldn't put it as the best solution. And when we start thinking about this, like the Amazon IoT is nicely managed. It's got the ability to set rules, so you can actually set a different rule for different types of vehicles or what have you. So yeah, interesting. I'm going to put my thoughts on number 3 this time.
Number 3,
Where's
Amazon
the audience
IoT.
at?
Well, I did for a second there see 100%, but when you were talking about Kinesis, you just lost your 100%.
It's okay.
Still not a 100% answer. We're on question 5. Let's reveal this one. Of course it is IoT, and thanks for the extra info over that. That was awesome. Take a break. You take a break, and I'll do the massive job of reading your question number 6.
I felt like it was a good time.
Data transfer. You ready? Here we go. An external company provides data several times a day by uploading via SFTP protocol.
Mm-hmm.
The data must be processed using an AWS Lambda function as soon as it has been uploaded. What would be a recommended architecture for this requirement?
Cool. So SFTP has been around for a very, very long time.
Bit of a legacy protocol.
It is, yeah, and it's how a lot of customers and businesses have transferred data between organisations. So say you needed a bit of the data feed from my company, I'll normally fire up an FTP server and throw the file over to you. They have tried to make it a little bit more secure by putting it in SFTP, and now we're transferring files that way. But it's pervasive out there in the world. So and some would consider it legacy, but it's sort of part of the natural ecosystem of a lot of our customers out there.
Absolutely.
So when I look at the first answer there, use AWS Transfer for SFTP, and Amazon S3 events. You can actually get a feeling that like Amazon's been listening to their customers, and it's one of the things that I think AWS does really well. Is taking feedback from customers, because you wouldn't think that a cloud platform would have recently released an SFTP platform.
Yep.
But here we are. We've recently.
We know how many people still use it. Yep, absolutely.
So we've recently released SFTP, which the files land in S3 on the back of that. So then we can trigger an S3 event, and the world is our oyster at that point. So
awesome.
That's a definite possibility. Running an SFTP server on Amazon EC2. Then invoke the Lambda function from the AWS CLI. We can definitely look at doing that.
Pretty manual.
It is very manual, and a lot of sort of like a bit of a Rube Goldberg machine, where you've got like the mouse comes in and the trap comes down after all the ball rolls everywhere. That's kind of what that solution feels like to me, but it could be done. You do have to maintain the server. You do have to have it publicly accessible, so you might need to see things like firewalls and all that kind of thing in there. So a lot involved in that. Enable SFTP uploads in CloudFront. So CloudFront doesn't support that kind of thing. So But what is interesting is Lambda at Edge there.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Lambda at Edge.
Lambda at Edge.
Yeah, so Lambda at Edge is a fairly recent addition to the CloudFront and Lambda world. It sort of brings those two together, where you can actually run your Lambda functions closer to the edge that your customers can take advantage of.
Yep.
So some of the use cases around that are like at the edge authentication and redirects, that kind of thing. I've seen one of my customers got rid of their whole redirecting fleet inside IIS and moved all that to Lambda at Edge. And they actually have a file sitting in S3 with all their redirects in there.
Okay.
And so it's fully serverless. So they're really enjoying that. So Lambda at Edge, have a look. It's not a great use case for what we're talking about today. Mount Amazon S3 on the external company's SFTP server and attach a Lambda function to the bucket. So it kind of feels a little bit like one, but you've just built it yourself.
Yeah.
And I've actually done mounting S3 from a EC2 instance, and let me tell you, it's not fun. It's a use case we definitely don't recommend people use, but we are seeing customers out there using it. And through open source libraries and that kind of thing, it is fraught with danger. So my spider senses tingle
/ actual real life experience.
Tend to freak out when I hear that kind of thing. So I'm going to definitely say no to 4, and it's on 0%. So I'm happy I've actually convinced
I like that you see the 0%, not concentrating on yet again that you do not get 100% agreement on it being number 1.
Does anyone ever get 100%?
I think this is the first show I haven't had a single 100% agreement on at least a couple of questions, Chris.
Okay. I'm going to have to reevaluate my life.
Interesting.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Well, I think that's a bit dramatic. Let's lock in number 1.
Okay.
Is your kids watching?
I hope so.
Yeah?
I don't think they are, but I think they're going to watch on YouTube later, I think.
Okay. They'll love it.
Yeah, well, my daughter said to me this morning as I was leaving the house, you're not going to get any questions right, Dad?
Well,
and
I can tell you, he didn't get any with 100% agreement from the audience, and I think we've only got one question left. Or time for.
Okay,
anyway,
all right,
revealing this answer,
okay.
you are absolutely correct. It is, of course, number 1.
All right.
Come on, 100%.
Round it up. Yeah, it's good.
Round it up. We're going to finish with autoscale, and I think we can just about fit this one in. You happy to go with this one, Chris?
Yep.
Let's do it.
Yep.
A business application uses Amazon EC2 autoscaling. Users complain that files uploaded to the application sometimes disappear. How can you redesign the application to fix this?
Right. So this is
Nice
pretty
one to
interesting.
finish on.
Yeah. Well, one thing we don't want is missing data. Right?
No.
So that's not a good thing. We can put that down. I'd get 100% on that.
It's not how the show works, Chris.
Okay, so we're going to design the application to fix this. Okay, so is it an application issue or is it an infrastructure issue? I'd probably say it's a little bit of both when we start talking about auto-scaling, right? So when we look at applications that work well in auto-scaling, we generally start talking about where they store their state. So where the data is, where the persisted data needs to be stored. So when we talk about auto-scaling, it's actually going to create instances and destroy instances as needed. And so when I think about that, like I look at the first one, activate termination protection on the EC2 instance. That's not something you really want to use with auto-scaling, right?
Yep.
Because you want the instance actually destroyed or terminated. So I'd probably cross that off. But even though termination protection is a very handy feature, it's not really great to use with auto-scaling.
Got it. What about number 2?
So uploaded files in Amazon EBS instead of Instance Store. So do you want to talk about Instance Store?
No, I do not.
Okay. So a lot of the instance types that AWS have Instance Store attached to them, and so that means storage directly attached to the instance. EBS is sort of separate to that, where you can attach and detach that from EC2 instances. You can snapshot it. It is persistent across start and stops. Instance Store is
Once you turn it off,
it's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone. Great for temporary storage and some of the NoSQL databases and those kind of use cases, but not for this kind of problem where we want to persist data across. So unfortunately, that's out the door. Store uploaded files on Amazon EFS. So EFS, Elastic File System. So we've got one of those ATM machine type things going on in this question here, where you've got EFS, like Elastic File System, but anyway, I'll keep that to myself.
Just a quick correction to producer John. Double type.
So we can definitely attach that to the EC2 instance, and that will be persisted across multiple different instances. All the instances that are attached to that file system will be able to interact with the data stored in there, so you'll be able to share it quite easily. What's interesting, we've just added Lambda functionality that can attach to a EFS file system, so that's fantastic. You can now share data across your different running Lambdas, just as a FYI. And then when we look at auto-scaling lifecycle hook to back up the files before instances are terminated, that's a possibility, but what that means is that while
a mouthful. Auto-scaling lifecycle hook. Got it.
Yeah, and it'll be a page full of code as well, right? Like organizing the scripts to actually copy the data up. It also means that the other instances that are running won't be able to get access to that data until it's terminated. And then when the systems start up, they're actually going to have to download all the data again as well. So I'm all in on 3. I haven't got
on the file system.
The Elastic File System. I'm absolutely in, but like I've missed 8.3% of people, and I think that's one person, which is pretty sad.
I wonder if they did it on purpose.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, let's make sure you have at least got 100% of the questions right.
Yeah.
We could walk away with that. Of course, it is number 3. Chris, thank you so much for joining me today. I've actually been trying to get this guy on for ages, so thank you for finally agreeing to be here with me. We will see you all next time on another episode of CQ. Thanks,
guys. See ya.